TikTok has taken the world by storm over the past few years. An absolutely mind-boggling number of videos have been uploaded to the platform, which makes it an endless pool of content to review, especially finance-related videos. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece, and in today's video, I'm going to be diving into the magical land of finance TikToks. Let's get straight into it.
Here are my thoughts on home ownership and why, for the foreseeable future, I will continue to rent and hold off on buying a house to live in. As an example, let's use this house.
That's a pretty nice house. That's quite large. Obviously from America, not Australia where I am. And look, that looks like a pretty big property. Looks pretty impressive to me.
Now this isn't my house. This is my parents' house. So before all the trolls start trolling after me, just know that I'm just here visiting. Let's say when my dad bought this house, it was about $1 million. This was 30 years ago. And let's say he put a down payment of roughly 20%. Now this was the 1990s, so it seems like the mortgage rates were about close to 10%.
In the 1990s, mortgage rates being 10%, that is pretty scary considering right now in Australia in particular, we're in the 1 to 3% range for a home loan, depending on which bank you're with. On $1 million, that's a significant amount of money in interest each year. If he had $800,000 of debt, he would be paying somewhere in the realm of $80,000 a year. Whoa. At 10%, whoa, scary.
Holy crap. But let's say my parents had excellent credit and they got a better rate. Maybe 7%. Now this house is basically as old as I am. It's about 30 years old. So the length of the loan is going to be 30 years. Now the monthly payment on that is approximately $6,000. That means $6,000 a month my parents are paying to own more and more of this house.
$6,000 a month. That's insane. You gotta have a pretty decent job to be able to pay that type of mortgage. I own a property and I owe roughly $300,000 on it, and I'm paying roughly per month about $1,700. So that's including both principal and interest. So that's a lot of money to be making repayments on a home 30 years ago as well, mind you.
Okay, so now let's see what happens if they took that money and put it into like an S&P 500 index fund over the same 30-year period. According to the Motley Fool, the average return of the S&P 500 over the last 40 years is 10.9%. So let's be a little conservative and say it's 9%.
I personally wouldn't say 9% is conservative. If the average was 10.9%, you definitely would have had good and bad years over that 30-year period. I'd say somewhere between the 5 and 7% would be a conservative number, but for the sake of this, I can see where he's kind of going with this. It's going to be definitely more beneficial in just a flat figure term, I call it now, for investing in the share market.
So now let's see what would have happened if we took that $6,000 monthly payment and put it into an S&P 500 index fund for the same 30-year duration, returning about 9%. I'm just going to go to investor.gov, fill in all the information that we talked about, and hit calculate. Holy shit.
Somewhere over $9 million for his calculation. That is a significant number. $9 million plus is a lot of cash to have in today's day and age. I would say that would be having you pretty comfortable on your feet. However, keeping in mind, $6,000 a month would equal somewhere in the realm of just over $2 million that they would have had to have invested in their own money, which would have been part of that $9 million figure. Not really changing much. It's still a heap of money to have in your pocket invested, but something to take note of. I'm sure he'll dive into it a bit more and we'll get a bit more clarification. Let's keep going.
But like the house must have gone up in value also in those 30 years, right? Oh,
Only $2 million in 30 years. It definitely doesn't live in Australia. House prices here have grown significantly over that period of time. Very, very interesting seeing different demographics around the world. Another thing not being taken into consideration here is they would have paid that house off at some point and then had money to invest if they technically still had access to that $6,000 a month. So if they had paid that house off in a timely manner and then invested the money as well, with the added value of the house plus the growth of the index fund or the return from their investments, they probably would have ended up with even more. Again, I'm jumping to conclusions. I'm sure he will dive into basically what I've just said, maybe.
Now, before all the trolls start trolling on me, I get it. There are probably some other factors I didn't take into consideration.
There it is. but let's see if he knows what those considerations are.
Like inflation and where you're buying a house and this and that and the experience and the love and the life. Okay. But as you can see just from this one example, it certainly pays to self-educate and get financially literate.
I definitely do agree with what he's saying. Definitely being financially literate and understanding complexities within the financial system. Absolutely, it's power to you, because you can then use that as basically a tool to build your wealth and make sure that you're utilizing your money in an appropriate manner. I don't know if this is a great example. This is a very specific example, and it's something that there's so many factors involved within it that it's almost impossible to determine anything or any outcome, especially if you were someone buying a house in the 1990s. How the hell would you know that the S&P 500 would perform the way it did versus buying a house, being able to live in it and actually spend time in it and having a physical asset that literally allows you to live comfortably for the next 30 years. So I don't know if it's the best example, but he did make the point. It pays to be or to get educated in financial literacy. That one I absolutely can agree with.
This is why I want to continue to rent, even though I live in LA and it's a super expensive area, but the rent that I'm getting is actually quite cheap. And so I want to continue to rent so that I can then take the excess income that I make and build my wealth through index funds or other types of assets, instead of just buying a house and actually losing.
I don't know if losing is the correct term. It just sounds like he has a different plan, which kind of goes against the grain of the traditional buy a house, you need to buy a house scenario. There's lots of factors that could really affect him if he just chose to rent and then, I don't know, ended up never buying a house and lost the opportunity to buy a house, or he had to rent for the rest of his life. So he was always moving, had to have a landlord, whatever it may be. He lost his job and didn't have the security of owning a property outright. I'm not saying that's the right answer. It's just traditionally where people go, especially in Australia, and I'm sure lots of other places in the world. What I've noticed is that it's getting harder and harder to buy property, especially as a young person, depending on where you live in the world, especially like in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne, it's almost impossible for young people to buy homes. So it's definitely not the best course of action to leverage yourself into so much debt that you cannot afford to buy one, if that's going to be a defining factor that's going to affect your wealth building in the future. However, I wouldn't say he's losing. I'd just say he's going down a different path. And I'm sure he's going to defend himself here by saying he's just created a 2-minute TikTok and hasn't considered everything. It's just him talking off the top of his head. Absolutely 100% okay. I'm just kind of critiquing it because that's what I wanted to do today, was to dive into some of the stuff here on TikTok, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and see if my thoughts agree or disagree with what they're saying.
Again, I know this is a fiery topic and there's going to be a lot of haters, but that is all I need to know to forego buying a house right now.
Overall, good TikTok. Pretty interesting information. It was like an actual real world example where he compared two people's scenarios, which were his parents and the scenario of buying a house versus investing in the share market, and what the trade-offs would have been. That's actually given me an idea to make a video regarding should I buy a house or invest. It will be one to definitely add to the list. Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
A lot of people always ask me and are really shocked whenever I say I would never live with a man and go 50-50 financially. Of course, 50-50 sounds like the most ideal thing ever, and it would be in theory, but realistically, it's not fair.
I can already see where this TikTok's going, and I totally agree with the not 50-50 depending on the status of your relationship. If you have a partner and you are the carer at home who's not working while the other person is, and you have kids that you're raising, for example, in my opinion, it's a team effort. You need to come to the table and work together as a team to solve your financial problems and manage your money as a team. It's not 50-50 with the expectation that someone who's staying at home will still pay their way 50-50 whilst also taking care of the kids. I'm hoping she dives into it a little bit deeper. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I think I'm going to agree strongly with what she's going to say in this video.
Generally speaking, the majority of women are going to fall into the role of the nurturer. Most of the time, the woman is going to be doing the most cooking, the most cleaning. She's going to be the one keeping the home, decorating the home, shopping for the home.
I think that's kind of stereotyping. I don't necessarily like that. I personally would try to put in the effort to do cleaning and potentially cooking and help around the house and make sure things are maintained. Like if you wanted to go real stereotypes, I'd take care of the outside while my partner takes care of the inside of the house. That technically is also 50-50 in terms of I'm working as a team member as part of the team being my relationship to make sure that the house I live in is kept neat, tidy, and functioning. Same with the financials. If my partner is unable to work because they're taking on another responsibility, such as looking after kids or raising kids while they're really young, that technically is where that teamwork comes in again. I don't like how people try to quantify a relationship into like sections or break it up into sections like this is the work you've got to do to make it fair. This is the money you have to earn or pay to make it fair. I think that as a team, it should just be do the most that you possibly can to make sure that everything runs smoothly and put in the effort. Don't be lazy. And as a team, you should get through it in most circumstances.
Also, in the event that she gets pregnant, how is that going to be 50-50? A woman risks so much with pregnancy, she can even die.
Again, it's not really relevant to the 50-50 argument. Like, sure, it's kind of obvious. Like if they are pregnant or giving birth or recovering from giving birth, they are absolutely going to be out of action when it comes to earning money. Theoretically, if I was driving halfway across the city every single day, I could die in a car crash. Like, it's still a risk. That's not a really good analogy. Like they're just part of the everyday life cycle. If you decide to have kids, it's going to be inevitable. Yes, she should not be expected to pay 50-50 because she's not going to be working. The partner's not going to be working. But I don't like how it's like, this is the risk of her doing this. So therefore, that's the reason. No, it's just like, it's literally how the scenario plays out. If your partner gets pregnant, of course, they're not going to be doing much once they give birth, especially in the early recovery stages. So I think that's a little bit silly.
And when the baby is born, who's going to be the one nurturing that baby the most? Imagine a woman doing all that and expected to go half financially. I don't think that's 50-50.
This TikTok was really good for this particular scenario. I like the example because I am a bit naive. In my mind, it makes sense not to go 50-50 in a scenario where my partner was to give birth and not be able to pay her way through that recovery period or until she goes back to work. And even if she did go back to work, it still wouldn't be 50-50. Like I said, it's team work. Like I said, I'm naive and I think, or that makes sense to me, but I know that in the world, like there would be some people, I've read it on subreddits, for example, all the time where people have this expectation that their partners pay their way 50-50 and they might earn significantly less, but they might have to, another scenario that could have been used in this example is like, let's just say I'm super rich and my partner doesn't have access to a lot of money. And I am someone who likes to flaunt my money. So I want to go out for dinners. I want to go on holidays. I want to go spend time doing things. And I want her to come with me. Otherwise, the relationship's going to be a bit rocky. And let's say I was to expect a 50-50 scenario. She's not going to be able to pay her way to come to these events, go on these holidays. It's just going to become a resentful situation. So if I was married to this person and they were expected to do that and it was not feasible for them, it's going to rip a relationship apart. I think that's a better example than the baby one because the baby one's like a forced scenario. It's like you can't really do much about your partner having a baby. However, regarding lifestyle, if I want my partner to be a part of my lifestyle and she can't afford it, therefore 50-50 is never going to work. Whereas if I was to be a team member, a team player, and work with her to manage it in a way that allows us to enjoy those things, then everyone wins. Even though technically I'm spending more, I'm giving my partner the opportunity to participate, which should, in theory, make that person a bit more appreciative of the scenario or the situation that they get to be a part of, and I get to enjoy it with them. I think that's a better overall scenario that falls into the 50-50 conundrum conversation because it's a more reasonable and kind of everyone's on the same playing field going into it. It's just where those expectations lie that would determine its feasibility. Moving on.
Hey guys, so my husband got paid, so it's time to stuff some envelopes. And today we are going to be working under budget. My husband is a commission-based job, so sometimes his paychecks are less than what we anticipated for. So today I only have $303 to put into my envelopes after I have already pulled out the money that I need for my bills.
All right, this one's going to be a good one. Looks like she has a budgeting system. Looks like it's a physical budgeting system with cash, which is absolutely fine if it's something that makes you feel comfortable. Personally, I don't like hoarding cash because cash is physical and people can steal it. It can go missing. Family members can do dodgy things with it because it's not in a bank account where it's all tracked. However, it seems like she's got it written down on paper. She knows what's going where aware and she has like I said, a budget to work with, this is going to be an interesting deep dive into how someone would break up their wage based on a category system, based on a needs system. And I like how she's taken all the money out for her fixed expenses. It sounds like she's paid herself for all of her bills and expected bills. So this is just going to be how she splits up the remainder of that money. What you say it was, I think it was $303. This will be pretty interesting.
So some envelopes are not going to get any money in them solely because I don't have the money to put in there. So for groceries, that's going to get $150 and that's never going to change.
Okay, this is going to be good. It seems like she's disciplined enough to know that she can't put money in specific envelopes. So she's going to have to prioritize where that money goes. This is going to be interesting to see where someone's priorities lie. One thing I've already picked up on that I don't like is that she's putting $150 into her groceries expenses or her groceries envelope, and that's $150 every single time they're paid. She said it's never going to change. To me, sounds like a fixed expense for two reasons. One, it's never going to change. Therefore, why is it even in this system? Why is it not counted as part of the bills? And two, you need to pay for groceries to live. If you've got a fixed amount that you're putting in there every single time, don't include it as part of this envelope system.
Gas, my husband left that money in his bank account, so I don't need to put anything in there.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Her husband has an account for that fixed expense. Why is groceries not as part of that fixed expense category? Why is she breaking up the wage to put it into a standalone envelope when that number's not going to change? I'm being really fussy right now. To me, that's just backwards. That just doesn't make sense. Moving on.
Toiletries, I'm not putting anything in there because I just bought toiletries last week. We don't need anything. My husband's spending money is in his account. I'm not getting any spending money. We're not putting any money in dining out.
Okay, that's really disciplined. She's not giving herself any spending money and no money in dining out, which are two recreational activities that people really enjoy doing. I'm sure that if you had to skip a few weeks, that it would start to itch on you and it would be something you want to do. So props to her for being disciplined enough not to give herself anything. Again, her husband has had money put in his account for his spending money. So she obviously must be only managing specific bills or expenses or envelopes for her financial system. It kind of sounds like it's not between her and her husband. It sounds like her husband takes a pool of cash to do specific things with it. Then bills come out and then she gets given cash to manage for other expenses, activities, whatever it may be. Kind of confused about how the dynamic works between the two, because realistically, she should just get all of the money and then break that up as part of their financial agreement between the wife and husband. Not saying that he couldn't do it with her, but if she's the one who seems to be the organizer here, why isn't she getting access to all of that money to be able to break it up appropriately when the husband seems to be able to take a pool of that and just use it for things like he has his own spending money, like she said, gas money. I'm sure he has other accounts as well out of that total amount. It's their system. It's not my rules, just something that I've noted.
Medical is going to get $5. Entertainment is going to get $10. Miscellaneous is not going to get anything. Vapes is going to get $25. I did quit smoking, so we're cutting this in half because I'm not spending money on vaping anymore.
$25 to vapes. That's interesting prioritization. I get it that tobacco is addictive and people have their cravings and people need their fixes. That's crazy to see that she's skipped like a whole bunch of categories and then 25 of that $300 is going straight in. Oh, that's a big chunk of the money considering she's only got $303 to work with.
Christmas is going to get its usual $50. Birthday is going to get $10 instead of $20.
Whose birthday is she referring to? For a system that's so specific, like they've got very, very specific envelopes here, there's a lot of them to manage as well. Whose birthday are you referring to? I don't know if that's an important context to give because it could be her birthday, her partner's, it could be all of their birthdays combined, especially considering how many envelopes they have and how well it's broken up.
Clothing is not going to get anything. Miscellaneous holiday will get $5. Vacation is getting nothing. Car maintenance is going to get $10. Violet is going to get $5. and home is going to get $20. Okay, and that leaves me with 13, and I went ahead and picked 2 envelopes, and I have 6 in one. So I'm gonna put $6 and $1 in each of these envelopes. And then the last $7 is gonna go into our $1 savings.
Overall, interesting system. I like how she's got a budget. That is the key point here, is that budgeting is a very, very useful tool, especially when managing finances. I give her props for putting one together and really trying to concrete it in with the overall complexity of the system. She's got lots of envelopes. She has reasons or accounts or purposes for those envelopes and the money that's going into them. Props to her. That's fantastic. I do, however, have a few issues. I don't like the system in particular because it's up to her jurisdiction as to where that money goes. So she's not saving for the sake of saving. She's putting money into accounts that she's foreseeing are going to have serious expenses and leaving out money from others. For example, there was like a miscellaneous envelope which had nothing in it, and whatever category that would ever come up that money would need to be taken from that envelope, if she just continuously doesn't put money in it because for that week there's no reason to put money in that envelope, then when something does come up that fits into that category, where's she going to take the money from? It's not a particularly good system because of the way it's structured. Personally, I have talked a lot on my channel about the way you should structure accounts and the way to set it up so that you're saving for the sake of saving, so that when something comes up that money needs to be taken from that account, it's already there and it's been purposed before the event happens. And over time, as you save more, those accounts build to a point where they sustain themselves. I don't necessarily agree with that system. Like I said, it's just an interesting deep dive into someone's personal finance management systems. There's no right or wrong, I suppose. If it works for them, good on them. But the other problem I had with it was how they're saving money as well, in terms of, for example, the vacation was putting like $10 per pay in there. If you do the math, that's $10 a week over the course of an entire year. That's $520. You're not going on vacation for a really long time, especially if you've got 3, sounded like it was her husband, and her kid. You're not going anywhere for a really long time in that instance. So I'm being a bit picky again. I really wanted to break it down. The system overall, if it works for them, good on them. Budgeting is a really difficult thing to do, and prioritizing money to specific accounts and sticking to that budget is a really difficult thing to do. So good on them. But overall, I didn't like the system. Moving on to the last and final video.
An argument explaining why we can't just print more money.
If monkey have one banana, banana rare, banana valuable. If monkey make more banana, banana not rare, banana not valuable.
I just wanted to throw that one in there because I remember specifically an argument I had with a friend that I used to work with, and she came out into the area that we could chat and she was like, why don't we just print more money? I don't get it. Why can't we just print money? And at the time, I didn't have a simple way to explain it. I was quite young, didn't have the concept, but I knew that it wasn't as simple as just printing money, even though our governments have kind of done that and put us in a bit of turmoil because someone's got to have some type of value to be able to print that kind of money. And we haven't seen the serious negative effects from that occurring yet. Oh, scary. But back to the argument that took place, and I tried to explain to her why it's not as simple as just printing that money. And it was so funny because I couldn't give her a good reason at the time, but this guy has broken it down in a really simple example, and it's come up a few more times since then. So now whenever people say to me, why can't we just print more money? That's my go-to. If the banana's rare, then everyone wants it. If the banana's not rare, then no one wants it. I have left a link down below to all of the original TikToks that I reviewed today. So if you were interested in seeing more from those creators, you can absolutely go click on them and go spend some time on their pages and see what type of content they're pushing out. I have personally watched some of their content and I liked it. So yeah, definitely do that if it's something that you're interested in doing. Overall, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope that it was insightful. I hope you potentially got something out of this fun little activity. It definitely won't be the last time I review TikToks because I know just how much financial advice is being put out onto the platform. And like I said, it's an endless pool of content to review. With that being said, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good week. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.